This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Do we have a fun show for you today? We welcome you into this Tuesday edition of Money Moves, VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you, holding it down as always, live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino, home of the world's largest sports book. And let's jump right in, set the table for all that's to come over the course of the next 2 hours. Let's hit it with the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the rundown.
All right, JVT, to kick things off, we got a couple great guests that fans can expect today. Both VSiN.com managing editor Adam Burke talked through some college basketball and college football, as well as great college football writer Matt Fortuna of the independent podcast, The Inside Zone, get his thoughts on all things college football bowl season and the media tour that Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua has been on, including a press conference update today, because we know Matt covers the Notre Dame Fighting Irish very closely.
Yeah, I guess you kick, you scream, and you get what you want. Now you just get put into the college football playoff if you're a top 12 team, if you're the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, looking forward to it. Matt also, I believe, a Heisman voter. So I'll be very interested to see what he has to say about who he voted for, who he thinks his other voters will vote for. Did you get a ballot?
No, not for this
Did you
one.
finish your other one?
I did.
Okay, I got to find out who you voted for. And then, of course, Adam, a lot of college basketball today, pretty good slate. And I got to throw my theory at him. I was amongst some peers over the weekend, and I said that I would refuse to give up on Kentucky. And they all mocked and laughed at me. I mocked them because they're old and they can't plug things into their computers, but still, I was mocked.
Wildcats in action today.
Yeah.
Curious to see what you're going to do with that one when we get into college hoops a little bit later. And lots of basketball on the docket today in general. As I wrote here in the rundown, the NBA Cup runneth over. Group play in the rear view. We got the quarterfinals getting underway today. 2 games in the East tonight, 2 in the West tomorrow. And JVT, a number of injuries to be aware of ahead of those tip-offs tonight.
Yes, including a huge, both figuratively and literally, return potentially in the Western Conference for the San Antonio Spurs. We don't know yet, but looming over all of this is the 7-footer Victor Wembanyama, who could return to help the San Antonio Spurs get out here to Las Vegas.
And we saw Stephon Castle come back the other day, so would be a big feather in the cap. They did go, by the way, 8-3 so far in the 11 games without Victor Wembanyama. See what it looks like today. We're going to start in the NFL, though, today. Lots of interesting news and notes that we're going to hit on in about 15 minutes, including the dirty dogs of the week. Lots of big favorites on the Week 15 card. Always excited to see which hold your nose underdogs you're most interested in.
Not you?
There are a couple that are tempting, but I don't. You're the one that's always like, the minute I present a number, you're like, you know what I got to do.
Yeah. I mean, well, you got to press back a little bit, right? You got to, when others zig, you got to zag. Generally, it has worked out, I think, kind of well throughout the season when we talked about these instances. Look, it's a fun league and it's an interesting league, and it's never the same as it was week to week. So you can't really overreact too much. Having said that, the dogs this week are very disgusting.
One of those underdogs just signed an 800-year-old quarterback to the practice squad, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. We want to start with what transpired last night. Speaking of dogs, one of them barked enough yesterday to get an outright win. Chargers beat the Eagles outright in overtime, 22-19, and I feel like I'm the old Oprah Winfrey meme at Christmas time. It's like, you get a turnover, you get a turnover, you get a turnover. We had 8 combined turnovers last night, the most we've seen in any game this year. 6 of them came in the second quarter, 3 on each side. First time that's happened in a quarter century. And Jalen Hurts somehow, some way committed 2 on the same play at one point and had the game sealing interception.
Yeah, look, I'm a little ornery today. I'm not in the best mood. That game sucked yesterday. I was watching that whole thing. I mean, it was poorly played. It wasn't very fun. The turnovers, I guess, at some point had some entertainment value to them. But I watched 2 teams who just couldn't get out of their own way time and again. Even like, look at the last couple of plays of the game in overtime. You have the Chargers on, I believe, what was a 4th down, ready to stop the Philadelphia Eagles. And what happens? They commit a defensive penalty that gives them a fresh set of downs. And then 2 plays later, Jalen Hurts throws his 4th interception of the day that ends up sealing the game. That game sucked. And both of those teams, I mean, you look at both of them now coming out of it. I'm sorry. I guess, look, the Chargers, they got their 9th win. Good for them. They're maintaining pace and trying to keep up with the Denver Broncos of the AFC West. I did not see 2 teams that I am thrilled to say are contenders in their respective conferences. That was ugly.
I'm in complete agreement with you, and we'll dive into some of what those futures numbers do look like for each of these teams in a moment. I do want to reference, though, because you laid out how things played out in overtime. On the live line, when the Eagles were in the red zone, They were out to minus 800 favorites in a position to win the game. The Chargers 5-1. Why don't we hear the live call from our own Dustin Sweetelson last night on cashing out as he was sweating both a Chargers money line play and the under? This is too good.
Oh, man. I'm getting kicked in the teeth in this game. This is not fun to live out publicly with all of you right now, but I do appreciate you hanging out however you're tuning in. Sirius XM 158, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, and radio affiliates across the United States of God Bless America. On 1st and 10, Hurts with a throw. He's intercepted. Oh, baby. Another one. Say bye-bye, Jalen. Picky number 4. Chargers win. Under cashes. Let's go. Oh, I got to talk to my therapist about what just happened because that was not professional of me. I was told when they gave me this show, I have to be more professional.
It's just so good. That is every better when you think you're dead in the water and something magical happens for you to win. That Justin's my spirit animal in that moment.
That was ridiculous.
Come on.
When I was watching at home, I just went, and that's it. And then I moved on with my day. That's all I did. Of course. Well, you've watched me. You've seen me on Sundays here during the shows. Oh, it's fun. I think that's why you do it. I mean, we get lost in all of the nonsense of, plus EV and doing all sorts of, you're supposed to have fun with it.
Picky number, just so funny. And Dustin, I gotta say,
I'll send him some notes.
I know you were questioning your own professionalism in that moment. I was actually pretty impressed with you. No FCC violations. That could have come into play when you're having that level of excitement. I was proud of you. By the way,
B-.
If you haven't, make sure you check out Dustin on Cashing Out Sunday through Thursday, every weeknight, 8 to 11 Pacific, 11 to 2 a.m. out east. And for as excited as Dustin was, Jim Harbaugh was, I guess, equally excited or maybe more because he said it was right up there with some of the best moments of his life.
Maybe the best feeling, just a wonderful, wonderful feeling of winning and thrill of victory. It's certainly in the discussion. I put in the discussion the birth of my 7 children, my marriage, in the conversation, just joyful, joyous. And, the biblical definition of that is just overflowing with joy.
He's got 7 kids?
Yeah, almost as many as Phillip Rivers.
What is happening? Why?
He had 2 marriages, right? So,
I had no idea.
Got to repopulate.
I guess. Charles Darwin, big middle finger to him. He got it done. Good for him.
What did you think of Justin Herbert last night? Yes, he gets sacked 7 times, only 1 hand, but 2 legs. He was the Chargers' leading rusher in the game yesterday, which I don't think many people had on their bingo card given the injury. What'd you think?
But yeah, by the way, quick note to that. At what point are the Eagles going to realize he's going to pull on some of these read options? There was multiple ones down the stretch where he got whoever is lining up at edge every time was biting on it, and he burned them for a couple of big ones. Look, I think a lot of people are going to easily want to point to the offhand and whatnot. Maybe that's part of it. I didn't think he was particularly good. I thought there were a couple of times where he ran into pressure. I thought there were quite a few times where his offensive line let it down, and it looked like an offensive line, as we know, is dealing with a lot of injuries and suffered another one yesterday throughout the course of the game. So I think it's a little column A, little column B. I think two parties were at fault. If you were cutting up the pie, more goes to the offensive line than it does to Herbert. But it's hard to be thrilled with him or this offense overall. Or at times, too. Hampton, I thought, had a little bit more pop, and especially at the end, broke one, and yet he wasn't really getting the ball. They were still kind of splitting those carries up a little bit between him and Vidal. So to me, there's, I think, a lot of blame to go around. But at the end of the day, with the Chargers, we know what their weakness is. And I think that was pretty much what came to fruition yesterday.
Yes. And meanwhile, with the Philadelphia Eagles, the concerns are there. And I think this is why, if you remember earlier this season, we discussed some of their issues and the underlying stats and metrics that pointed to regression coming and them not being as good as the win-loss column was showing you as, and referencing, 2 years back, what this looked like, where it was a similar situation. They start the season 10-1, they drop whatever it was, 4 of 5 or 5 of 6 down the stretch, end up getting walloped in the wild card round. And this is kind of the feel you get here. I think that the Eagles are still going to win the division. They're minus 1,200 to do so, but the Cowboys sitting right there at plus 750, and their loss to Detroit on Thursday now doesn't feel as impactful as it would have down the stretch. You still need some help, and the remaining schedule for the Eagles is very favorable. They've got the Raiders this Sunday where they're laying double digits and have an injured Geno Smith or a backup quarterback in Kenny Pickett, depending on how that situation develops. They have 2 head-to-head games with the Commanders, who saw Jaden Daniels just re-injure his elbow. One tough game at Buffalo, but the point being, with bringing up the comp to 2 years ago. This just is not a team I have any interest in backing big picture. If they do win the division, they're 6-1 for the NFC, 12-1 for the Super Bowl, and I'm just not interested in any of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, look, Hurts, we have to have like some real conversations of what's going on with this passing game too. You know, again, yesterday, even the interception, his second to last interception, which is the one that went through A.J. Brown's hands. I mean, like, you try to uncork one, but it's, you know, it's kind of like a wobbler. It's a little behind Brown. He's got to go up and get it, and then it bounces out of his hands and it's picked off. You know, time and again, not really judging where some of these DBs are. You know, the smarter people than I who would criticize him as a quarterback who does not like to throw over the middle of the field, and that's been a big limitation for what they want to do. There's a lot of issues, I think, with this group overall. And I think it starts with quarterback. This is nowhere near the same offense, and it starts with him.
Want to hear a crazy stat? This is from Hembo over at ESPN. Yeah. If Jalen Hurts were to have spiked the ball on every possession last night, his passer rating would have been higher than it was.
Yeah.
Like, that's a wild stat. The Eagles, by the way, become a turnover machine. They lead the league in turnovers over their last 3 games on this losing streak. They've turned it over at least twice in each one. And what makes it more sad, if you ask me, is the fact that Nick Sirianni was talking, if you listen to any of the sound this past week, about how he had all of his focus on the offensive side of the ball. So, like, this is what the brain trust came up with when they put all of their eggs in the offensive basket this week.
He would have had a higher passer rating?
Yeah. It was.
I feel like your statistic is flawed if you can just throw the ball into the ground for every
If you were to spike the ball every play, your passer rating would be 39.6. He had a 31.2 last night.
I feel like there's a flaw in the metric.
I'm just saying.
Right?
Yes. You're not going to get a disagreement out of me. You hear the music. We got to take a quick time out. When we come back on Money Moves, there are 5 double-digit favorites this week. 6 teams laying more than a touchdown. Which dogs do we think might have a little bite in Week 15?
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Oh man, guys, you got to check this out. If you missed it the first time, good news. We're giving you one last chance to score an unforgettable Vegas weekend right here at Circa Resort and Casino, where we're broadcasting from. Right now, the first 100 new VSiN Pro annual subscribers who sign up using the promo code CIRCA are getting a free 3-night stay here at Circa, January 2nd through the 5th, plus a day bet at Stadium Swim in those heated pools for the final weekend of the NFL regular season. You'll also save 50% off the monthly price and get a full year of VSiN Pro. That's a daily best bets, exclusive betting splits, AI-powered prop tools, 24/7 video, and every betting guide, including the college football playoff betting guide that's coming out this week. This is your last shot, though, at the Circa Getaway, so don't wait. Lock in your spot at VSiN.com/Circa. Promo code Circa. Again, VSIN.com/Circa. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. With Week 14 of the NFL slate officially in the rear view, we're looking ahead to Week 15, where going through the card, 5 double-digit favorites this week in the NFL, 6 teams laying over a touchdown. And as we go through a few dirty dogs here in the NFL that might have a chance to have a little bark or maybe even bite on the weekend slate, one of those dogs, according to reports, has brought in old man Phillip Rivers for a workout last night, and the workout looked good. So he is signed to the Indianapolis Colts practice squad.
There we go. Okay, let's, some of you folks, you got to pump the brakes a little bit here. He was signed to the practice squad. I was on with Dave and Jensen this morning, and I made the bold proclamation that he's not going to play for the Indianapolis Colts this year. You're bringing him in an emergency situation. It speaks to where this is at overall with, I don't want to open the can of worms and have a greater conversation about quarterback development in the National Football League, but there's not a single option out there, Taylor Heineke among some of them, that you would feel more comfortable with putting on your practice squad than Phillip Rivers. But I'm going to venture a guess that Riley Leonard is their guy moving forward for the rest of the season. Anthony Richardson, it sounds like, is probably not going to be healthy enough to come off IR anytime soon. So you're going to see what you got with the young guy in Leonard. Probably don't have much. And then Rippon gets the start here this weekend if Rivers is going to play. I would doubt that Phillip Rivers sees a field outside of standing on the sideline for Indianapolis Colts this year.
Riley Leonard, who coincidentally is younger than Phillip Rivers' oldest son, hurt his knee this past week. And so that is the thought process. He might not be able to go if he can't. Shane Steichen did say it would be Brett Rippon, who's been on the practice squad, elevated. But Phillip Rivers comes in, and quite frankly, you hope he doesn't have to go in, considering the age and considering he'd have to face one of the best defenses in the NFL in Seattle. His first day back back at 44 years old and hasn't played a snap since 2020. I guess make sure in addition to the Catapult and Next Gen Stats tracker that you have on the chest plate, you also have Life Alert, because I'm not sure he would get back up after the aggressive hits that defense might put on him.
How long were you working on that one?
Thought about it this morning on the drive. I was pretty proud of it.
Well, it depends on who you believe. Quote, it's a no-brainer for who gives them the best chance.
Oh, come on.
That would be from Deanna Rossini, who spoke to a source close to Phillip Rivers, who said he's in better shape now than when he played.
You know what that reminds me of? How they said Pete Carroll has so much energy.
I mean, he does.
It's giving the same vibes. Is it not?
I mean, he still totally does.
Better shape than he's ever been in when he was
That's
playing.
Right. I mean, the energy has led to 2 wins for the good old Las Vegas Raiders, but still, the energy is still there.
What do you make of this spread, though? The Colts getting 13.5 in Seattle, total 42.5 here.
I mean, you can't like it. Look, Seattle has made mincemeat of a lot of lesser teams. Now, I think the question becomes, again, the focus on the offense for Seattle. The Sam Darnold-led Seahawks have been fine over the last couple of weeks, but they have not really been anywhere near a top offense at all. We saw that first half against Atlanta in which they were really struggling again. It was the second half in which they really started to open things up. And so you do wonder if maybe there's a scenario in which this offense holds the team back enough that Indianapolis can stay inside of a relatively large number. Having said that, I don't find that to be something that's going to come to fruition. And we'll point out, I think we pointed that out on this show quite a few times, the aspect of the game we don't really talk enough about. The Seahawks are the best special teams team in the NFL. I mean, when you talk about not only executing with the extra points and the kickoffs, but the ability to return those for touchdowns or explosive plays.
How about Rashid Shaheed this past week,
Correct.
Exhibit A?
A 100-yard touchdown return for Rashid Shaheed. So it's an electric unit in all 3 phases. And if you have a defense like this, either going against Riley Leonard or Brett Rippon or, God forbid, Phillip Rivers, it just seems like it's one of those games where it could be an avalanche very quickly. And the Seahawks could blow them out. So I brought this up to you yesterday. You can still find it like, if you're going to take a stab at this, do you just take a stab at like minus 20.5 at plus 240?
Just play the alts essentially.
Yeah, like play some alternate lines and here's some key numbers and expect that Seattle, who just beat their last opponent by, 29 or 28 points, whatever it was, that they're going to be able to do it again here.
Let's go from a conversation of the oldest quarterback in the league to one of the youngest in Shedeur Sanders, who Kevin Stefanski has officially named QB1 the rest of the way. The Browns are getting 7.5 in Chicago, taking on the Bears. Sanders coming off the best game of his brief career to this point, did lose in that game to the Tennessee Titans, but 394 total yards, 4 total touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 rushing. Any thought here against a Bears team that has pushed a lot of good teams to the brink this year?
I think you can get me here with Cleveland. Don't you?
Okay.
Are you not tempted by this at all?
Not particularly, but I'd love to hear your rationale.
Well, I mean, look, so Caleb Williams is one of the more pressured quarterbacks you're going to see. Over 34% of his dropbacks, he's been pressured. He tends to invite that pressure more than other quarterbacks in the NFL. You have a defensive line capable of getting their pressures on their own, let alone playing a quarterback that will allow those pressures to happen. To your point about like the Bears and pushing good teams, the Browns have pushed plenty of teams, and a lot of it has to do with how good their defense is. Now, they didn't defend the run particularly well last week, so you do wonder if maybe that is a sign of things to come for this team, whatever it is. But this group as a whole is a really dominant pass rushing unit. And if I'm going to get a quarterback that tends to eat sacks when he shouldn't, allows pressure to happen when he shouldn't, I at the very least can see a scenario in which this game is mucked up to the point where the Browns have an opportunity to stay inside of this number. And it's obviously, again, we talk about week to week, almost changing my mind, right? Last week, what was my whole thing? Browns, get out of here. Laying 4. This is something completely different where you're asking them to stay inside of a number against a team that's at the top of its power rating. And I think that that's a scenario where you look at the matchup itself too. You could paint a picture of the Browns staying inside of a touchdown here.
Speaking of week to week, Roma Dunze still is that as of now. We'll see what that looks like on the Bears injury report as the week goes on. From the Browns side of things, worth noting their starting center, Ethan Posick, is out for the remainder of the year. He tore his Achilles. Third offensive lineman they've had go down in the last 2 games. Their right tackle, Jack Conklin, was out Sunday with a concussion, so hopefully he can work his way back. Wyatt Teller out with a calf, and he's already been ruled out for the game as well. So that's 2 offensive linemen we know for sure going to be down for the Browns. Potentially a third with the young quarterback. Not ideal. So that's kind of what left me on the bubble on that one. A handful of other dogs, though, so I want to see which way you want to take this. We've got the Cardinals getting 9.5 in Houston. Your Raiders plus 12.5 in Philadelphia, taking on the Eagles. The Jets plus 11.5 in Jacksonville, and the Tennessee Titans, who are coming off just their second win of the season in San Francisco, getting 12.5 points.
Well, I'll selfishly do the Titans game just because that's your team. So what's your read on your team coming out of the bye?
They should be healthier. Still TBD updates on Tatum Bethune at middle linebacker. And why am I blanking on the other name that's really hard to say anyways? But they both have high ankle sprains.
Sam O?
Yes, Sam O. Let's call him O. But the two of them both dealing with high ankle sprains, and they said would miss multiple weeks, but if that includes the bye, that's 2. So what does that look like moving forward? There was optimism one or both could return, so I think that'll be important for them. Also, pending a couple returns on the defensive line with Yetur Gross-Matos and their kicker Eddie Pinheiro, both with hamstrings. So we'll see if they can get some guys back. I don't like laying this big of a number with San Francisco ever this season.
Sam
It's just
Okuwanu, by the way.
not trustworthy. Look at you go. I should
NFL
be better with that.
Guide. So I'm interested in this game too, because I can't, and I think I said this 2 weeks ago when we were talking about it. I can't help but shake the feeling that there is a shark lurking in the waters in the NFC, and that it's your team. The health has largely been the issue for the San Francisco 49ers.
And the offense is the healthiest it can possibly be.
And yet here we are, right? Where now they've treaded water enough. They're 9-4 heading into this week, still with plenty of opportunity in front of them to not just be a playoff team, to win the division still technically in it. I just think that if they're the healthiest they've been, and we've watched this Tennessee Titans team, look, it was a good spot for them last week. We talked about that up and down. But now here against a team coming off a bye that's the healthiest it's been, we haven't really seen it really fire on all cylinders at all. I think you're still waiting for this big offensive performance. And what better way, I think, to do it than coming off of a bye against a lowly opponent like Tennessee? I don't know. I'm actually kind of tempted, not by the dog here, but a little tempted by your guys.
Well, and they have, give them credit, won by margin at least each of the last 2 games. Yeah. Granted, you have to take into account it's against the Panthers and against the Cleveland Browns that we were just talking about. So it depends on how you view those teams. Carolina, very Jekyll and Hyde. And I guess, no, they beat up on Arizona too, but that's another bad team right now. I just have a hard time laying this number with them. That's not to say they can't do it, but the Titans have been feisty and have been covering numbers more often than not the last 5 weeks. I did want to ask you this on our way out here. Dirty Dogs from a division standpoint, Cowboys plus 750, Bengals 15-1. Any of those Dirty Dogs you think could be worth a look?
I mean, both, because considering that...
I guess you can throw San Francisco in there, too.
The teams at the top don't really frighten you in either one of them, right? I mean, I brought this up. Will Hill poo-pooed me last week when I was on his podcast. I told him, he's like, well, the Cowboys are eliminated. I said, no, they can still win the NFC East. Do you trust the Eagles at this point? And sure enough, they lose on Monday night. The door is still open for the Cowboys to win this division.
And for anyone who wants to say, well, the schedule sets up for them, that's true. It does. Did 2 years ago, too. And we still saw how that panned out. Okay, coming up on Money Moves, VSiN's Adam Burke is going to join the program. We're going to dive into all things college football postseason. Heisman finalists officially announced last night. Line moves already going. And Adam's coming in hot with a take I didn't expect regarding the G5s.
That Alabama got in. So what do? They give Alabama a chance against a team they already played and outgained by 200 yards. And yeah, you get to change of venue, but like, I don't know, man, John Mateer has not looked good since he came back from the injuries. It's just bothersome that we get this matchup here to me. And it's the first game of the playoff. I mean, I don't really care about either team. I don't really care about either fan base, but at this point, I'm just rooting for Oklahoma to win because I want the committee to get what they deserve for putting Alabama in. And that's Alabama leaving in the first round.
So one of many gripes from VSiN.com managing editor Adam Burke, who joins us now in studio as he always does on a Tuesday, be with us here on set for the next half hour. Adam, tell me how you really feel.
I'm a very gripey kind of guy, I guess. I don't know. I didn't hear the clip though because I didn't have the earpiece in. So
it was about Alabama.
Oh yeah, they have no business being in the playoff, none whatsoever. Just like to not even move down at all. Like whatever, man. The college football playoff committee is a joke.
What are you talking about? Alabama didn't deserve to move
Absolute joke. You mean when they had negative rushing yards in their SEC title game?
No, they got the SEC championship game. Why should they be docked for that?
They're a 3-loss team.
I mean, but the third loss only came because they got into a championship game. Something that others
sure, but they also counterfeited one of their best wins, probably their best win of the season by a large margin.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
they beat Georgia.
We only penalize BYU for not winning their conference title game. We don't penalize Alabama. You know that, JVT. Come on.
Miami didn't even play in theirs, and they're in the playoff. So.
I'm trying to get them going. It's not working. That was me cranking the line.
You know what, man? It's NFR time out here. I'm having a great time. This is my favorite week and a half of the year out here. I mean, there's steer wrestlers doing autographs back there.
You mean animal
great time. Love it. Love this time of the year.
JVT,
you will not get me riled up on this segment.
Actually, you might, because JVT, you want to give him the alien debate that you gave me.
No, I will save that for off the air. I will do that off the air.
Like, although extraterrestrials?
Yeah, well,
okay.
It started with a very serious look at Stormy, which then got her to go, "Are you okay?"
Okay.
I was worried about your emotional
I think that was the deepest I've ever looked into Stormy's eyes to give her the scenario about an alien. So, yeah.
Okay.
We'll tell you about it off the air.
Anyways, how has NFR week been going to? How many events did you go to?
So far, I've been to 6 concerts. So
of the 130, that's pretty low. Actually, I'm disappointed.
I can't be in multiple places at once. Like I haven't figured out how to clone myself yet. Maybe if anyone else has insight on that, I don't know how you are everywhere that you are. I don't know if you have a clone out there or a body double or something, but I haven't figured out how to clone myself yet. Otherwise, I'd be at multiple things all over town.
So you mentioned in that clip, even though you didn't hear it, that you just hope that Oklahoma wins that game when all is said and done. They are 1.5 point favorite at DraftKings. Pick them depending on, where you're looking at different spots here. Do you think that is the reality? Do you think that's the case in the 8-9 game on Friday, December 19th?
Well, I guess the question basically is how much stock do you want to put in the first regular season game between the two teams, which is exactly what I mentioned during that segment, I think. Oklahoma got badly outgained by Alabama in that one, but they had the 3 takeaways. They had the 87-yard pick 6. That was a 10 or 14-point swing, depending on what Alabama would have done there in the red zone. So that really kind of defined what happened in that football game. And, for Oklahoma, the defense is elite. There's no question about that. The defense is truly very, very good. But ever since John Mateer came back in the Red River rivalry game against Texas, he hasn't really looked the same. And I will say this, maybe, and this is something I thought Ohio State would do a little bit more with Will Howard going into the playoff, because they had no depth at quarterback and they were very much aware of it. So Will Howard, who ran around a little bit at Kansas State, never really ran that much for Ohio State in the regular season. Mm-hmm. When they got to the college football playoff, that's when he started to move around a little bit more. They had more designed runs. They had more designed scrambles. He was also willing to, get 3 or 4 yards instead of just throwing the ball away, something like that. Is that maybe something that John Mateer will now do? Because now it's not necessarily about managing him for the course of the regular season. It's about just letting him go out there and do his thing and do what he's best at. And that he was really good, as kind of a dual threat type of guy at Washington State. So maybe Oklahoma kind of unlocks that a little bit. And that's something that he wasn't going to do, during the regular season after that injury.
Yeah, I think it makes some sense. I would actually, because you alluded to their first game that they played. Look, there's always indicators that a game probably didn't go the way the final score says. Mm-hmm. At the same time, that also doesn't mean that it's going to transpire that way when they play again. Case in point, Alabama, Georgia, right? Alabama in that spot, beating Georgia and then coming back and losing the way they did. So actually, I'm kind of with Oklahoma here. The more you thought about this, the one thing that's bothered me is how bad Alabama's offense has looked now down the stretch. Teams change, and this Alabama team seems to have changed for the worse on offense.
Well, I think that's what probably pisses me off even more about Alabama being in the playoff is they didn't look good at all against Auburn, and they really didn't look that great against South Carolina. There were some games where Alabama just didn't really fit the profile of being Alabama. And I do think as well, and this hasn't really been reported, and maybe this is kind of by design that it hasn't been reported. It doesn't look like Ty Simpson is anywhere close to 100%. He just doesn't look like the same player we saw early on in the year. And, we have seen teams get docked for their quarterbacks being injured and stuff like that going into the playoff in the past. So, maybe that's something that Alabama's tried to really keep under wraps, but he just doesn't look the same. And, again, to your point, JVT, they outgained Oklahoma by 200 yards in that first meeting. They only scored 21 points, right? They did have the pick 6 again in the red zone, but they only scored 21 points. And so, that's something that Ole Miss did a lot under Lane Kiffin. They'd rack up 550 yards of offense and score 28 points, stuff like that. So, you can have yardage, but you still need to convert it, preferably into 7s, but at least into 3s. So if Alabama's going to struggle to do that, I am, initially I was looking at Alabama just because how the first game went. But the more you think about it, the more, I think about the point I brought up about John Mateer maybe running more. That could unlock something in this very boring Oklahoma offense.
And potentially why we're seeing the line move more in the Sooners' favor. Then we've got 3 games on Saturday. Miami getting 4 at Texas A&M. Tulane, a 17.5-point dog at Ole Miss. And then James Madison, plus 21.5 at Autzen Stadium, taking on Oregon. You had a pretty surprising opinion, at least in my purview, about the G5 teams being in when I was listening to the college football betting podcast with you and Tim Murray, considering what an advocate you are on a week in, week out basis for the little guy.
Yeah, I mean, I like the little guys. I think there's a lot of good betting value, in those conferences. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I want to see them on the grand stage here in college football. College basketball is dramatically different, right? It's just so much different of a sport than college football is. So we can get these Cinderella teams. We can get these upsets in March Madness. It's much, much more difficult to get those in the college football playoff. So look, we talked about this already, right? Like the first game doesn't necessarily mean that's how the second game is going to go, but Ole Miss destroyed Tulane when they played them earlier this season. Won by 35, massive yardage edge. Jake Retzlaff couldn't do anything. Ole Miss passed for 307, ran for 241. Tulane only threw for 104 yards in that game. Did run for 178, about 4.3 yards per carry, I think it was. But like, I've already seen this game. I've already seen this play. I know what the ending is probably going to be, whether Tulane covers or not. So I know that Tulane's got a very big uphill climb. I know that James Madison has a very, very uphill climb. And so I would rather see, give me the 12 best teams in college football.
Oh, stop.
And give me a group of 5 playoff that's on its own.
Stop. Both of you anti-group of fivers.
That's not what
Absolutely
okay,
ridiculous.
I want to let the record show that yesterday
ridiculous.
That's not what I said on the program.
Yes, it is. You said you had a problem with group of 5 teams in a 12-team format.
I said I don't like with there being so few teams that we got 2.
Yeah.
That is what I said. I like having a Cinderella option. I don't know if I like having 2 when there's so many
What's the
other teams
difference?
that could be in that position. That's how I feel about
No.
it. He said a group of 5 playoff, so having a whole different playoff for them.
Yeah, have a playoff and then the winner gets in.
I wouldn't hate that.
Yeah, come on now. We'd love it.
That I wouldn't hate, but
That's just too many games.
Logistically,
I
it's too many games.
Of course it is. I'm being a little hyperbolic. The whole point here about this conversation is the 2 group of 5 teams should not be slighted or denigrated because the ACC couldn't take care of their business.
I agree.
The ACC sucks, and so you needed to get these conference champions in. This is why we're here. I will go back to the original point we had yesterday. You expanded this to give more people more opportunities, and now more people got more opportunities. And we're like, not these people, though. We didn't want that. At the end of the day, if we want the best teams, let's just make rankings. Let's not play the regular season, and let's just put the teams we perceive as the best ones in there, and let's just wait until January to play.
The issue here is that the College Football Playoff Committee does not have a defined set of data, expectations, whatever the case may be. They can just do whatever the hell they want to do because – I mean, did Notre Dame get slighted because they aren't in a conference and don't have a TV tie-in with ESPN and ABC? Because, they have to grease all the palms of everybody who's involved in that, the network executives, the advertisers, all that kind of thing. Like if Notre Dame didn't play on NBC and they played on ABC, would they have been in this playoff? Would they have been a team that made it in there? I don't know the answer to that question, but anytime you hear Juracek or whoever's running this committee get up there in front of everybody and say something, it makes no sense. The goalposts are in constant motion. You can manipulate stats and data any way you want to. Like, let's just have a defined set of expectations on what it takes to be one of the 12 teams that makes the playoff and go from there.
Well, listen, Notre Dame's going to be just fine because after the memorandum of understanding going into next year, where as long as they are ranked 12 or higher, they will be guaranteed a spot in the field. They've seemed to have worked it out. We'll talk about that with Matt Fortuna a little bit later on in the program. But as far as it goes, like, big picture with the CFP, I think that's the biggest gripe is that they don't have a set of rules that is their standard. And even year to year, it's changing. Last year, we saw how that was with the automatic, like the first round buys going to the highest ranked conference champions. They realized that wasn't the way it should be. They changed it. And I think that's a similar situation here with the conferences and their tiebreakers for how you even get to the CFP. They're already making changes too, and they'll continue to do so on a year to year basis.
Couple of elitists.
We got to step aside. We'll have more of this coming up next, as well as some college hoops talk with Adam. Stay with us.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Money moves. And speaking of money moves, before the line moves, the Sharp Plays is already there. They don't just follow the market, they help shape it. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sports books or full-time sharps on your own, but with the Sharp Plays, you don't have to. They're powered by advanced AI, connected to proven insider sources, and are active across the NFL, NBA, MLB, college hoops, all throughout the year. The Sharp Plays delivers the edge serious bettors rely on. You get free daily reports, real-time alerts, and market-moving insights, all straight to your inbox or X feed. Since 2011, they've been backing it up with documented results, public logs, and transparent receipts. SharpPlays.com, trusted by the pros, monitored by the books. Stay ahead of the line at SharpPlays.com. Speaking of line moves, I'm sure there will be plenty of them between now and kickoff of any of the college football playoff games. And a good reminder is we have VSiN.com managing editor Adam Burke on the desk with us here. Our college football playoff betting guide will be out later on this week. Also, just bowls getting set left and right, spreads already on the move. Were there any other just non-CFP bowls that have caught your attention from a betting standpoint so far?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of moving parts. One thing I want to mention real quickly here about that college football playoff betting guide. So we are selling this one as a standalone guide. So if you don't want to become a VSiN Pro subscriber, and look, I get it. Like, people have subscriptions to everything nowadays. Maybe you don't want to have another one. I understand that. But $14.99 for that college football playoff guide that comes out on Thursday over at VSiN.com. We're going to have all kinds of stuff in there. Probably be 30-ish, give or take, pages. Bunch of best bets from hosts, assuming that they send them in. Looking at you two. Also, just a lot of stuff, first round preview matchups, stuff on the teams with the buys, things of that sort. So looking forward to that over at VSiN.com. And for the bowl season, 72 hours lead time, at least, on every one of these bowl games. Last year, we did 48 hours because the transfer portal was open during bowl season. This year, the transfer portal doesn't open until January 2nd. So maybe we'll have a little bit more clarity. Maybe we'll have fewer opt-outs. So we're going to try to give a little bit more lead time on all those bowl game previews over there at the website. But look, a lot of situations with interim coaches, kind of wondering if teams are going to be intact, if they're going to show up. Like, for example, Western Kentucky and Southern Miss in the New Orleans Bowl on December 23rd. Southern Miss head coach Charles Huff went from Marshall to Southern Miss, brought like half of his team with him, and then now gets the job at Memphis, deservedly so. Great year for him at Southern Miss, but now he's moving on again. So will he be taking more of his Southern Miss players? Some of the younger guys he took with him from Memphis. Will guys be in the portal here because they're not interested in going to Memphis or something like that? So that's just one example of a game where, there are things outside of what's on the field and what's in the stats that you want to consider.
All right, so the Angels got Alek Manoah, Grayson Rodriguez, and they just traded for Vaughn Grissom. What do we think?
Vaughn Grissom's an interesting gamble for them.
Oh, here we do.
I mean, that's a guy that, he was a pretty highly touted prospect when he was coming up through the Braves system and, kind of bounced around a little bit. It is nice to finally see some Major League Baseball news because, you got Kyle Schwarber signing here with the Phillies today. Edwin Diaz going to the Dodgers, which all but virtually guarantees a lockout coming in 2027. But yeah, the winter meeting's going on and, it's definitely, it's always exciting for me to get that MLB news in December because it is, probably my favorite sport to follow.
Right.
Not my favorite sport to bet anymore, but my favorite sport to follow. So it is good to get some of that hot stove from the winter meetings.
Dodgers just don't have enough. Had to get more.
Of course not. I wonder how much of that money is deferred in that contract too.
So a little hot stove talk right here on December 9th. Had to bring it up.
Were you trying to, pardon the pun, throw me a curveball there?
Yeah, that's why I was.
Whoa,
I was. Got to know you're ready for it every single time. All right, college hoops or anything else? Okay, so college basketball. Look, there's a lot of. I know you're the minor conference guy, so I have some topics lined up for you on these smaller conferences before we get to the big boys, if you would like. Now,
sure.
Hopefully, you have done your homework, as this is a very pro Mountain West show. Come on, you do that. Mountain West.
I didn't know that.
Looks like it's turning things around. If you look at the Mountain West recently, Utah State is 8-1. They beat VCU. Colorado State, all of a sudden, they go out to Colorado, largely control that game. That team's looking pretty good. New Mexico is looking pretty good with the win over an SEC team in Santa Clara. So what do we make of this turnaround? Boise State over the weekend.
SCSU beat Utah Valley.
We'll include that amongst the victories.
Tell me.
Utah Valley is a really, really good low major team.
There we go. There you go.
So Colorado State is fascinating to me.
I think so too.
Because Ali Farokhmanesh is their head coach. And of course, people remember, what was that, 2010?
So I think so. Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
2010 with the Northern Iowa upset. They play at a very, very slow pace, which is exactly what you would expect from a guy who has Northern Iowa ties. Ben Jacobson's teams have always played really, really slow. But number one in the nation in 3-point percentage at almost 46%. top 30 team in 2-point percentage, or a top 10 team, almost 81% at the free throw line here. These teams are really, really dangerous. When you play at a very slow tempo, but you're a remarkably efficient shooting team, it makes it really hard for the other team because they have to try to keep pace with you from a shooting standpoint, because they're going to be playing with limited possessions. And a lot of times these teams, particularly in the Mountain West, need a little bit more margin for error because they're not great jump shooting teams usually. And they're teams that sometimes don't get to the rim a whole lot, maybe kind of play a little bit more of a passive style of basketball. They don't attack. So Colorado State can really make things very interesting. Now, I don't think they're going to keep up shooting 46% from three for very long, but with conference play starting December 20th for them against Utah State, a big game right out of the chute for both of those teams, Colorado State looks really, really interesting to me because, again, they're a team that plays a different style than the rest of the Mountain West, where, yes, they play slow, but they're very efficient on offense, whereas the slow teams in the Mountain West are typically much better on defense.
And I'll add, he was on Nico Medved's staff at Colorado State, so there is continuity there with the guys that decided to stick around in the program. And we'll invoke 2 years ago, one of the upsets that comes to mind, Jack Golke's Grizzlies. Right. They go, the Oakland Grizzlies, they take on Kentucky in the first round, Stormy. They're an insanely slow paced team, but they shoot a bleep ton of threes. And sure enough, they upend Kentucky as really big dog. You up the variance when you're a team like Colorado State. I don't know. I really liked what I've seen from them. And the Mountain West as a whole is starting to kind of turn things around. Unless we forget the UNLV running Rebels going out to Stanford and getting a win over the weekend as well.
Well, and to your point, right? I mean, Colorado State's shooting at 52% of the time. The next highest of the Mountain West teams, 44.3%.
Yep.
So if you're going to play a game that's 63 to 66 or 67 possessions, something like that, and you're going to be scoring in threes, the other team's going to hope to score in twos, you can have a lot of success doing that, especially if you can, share the basketball and get clean looks.
I know I said I brought up San Diego State kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way. They are still the second shot on the board for the Mountain West Conference. Utah State plus 155 favorite, SDSU plus 170, Boise plus 650, and then CSU right there, fourth shot on the board at plus 850. Looking toward today, what's the mid-major play of the day? I know you've got an article up at VSiN.com right now laying out a few games of interest, but your favorite bet of the day?
Yeah, I got a few. I got a total in Little Rock in West Virginia, which I'm sure is a game that everyone will be paying attention to. I do have a side play in Columbia and Stony Brook, if you guys want to go to that one.
Sure.
You guys know the mascots for those.
I was trying to guess.
I did know. See, I knew those ones. That's why I wasn't doing Who's That Mascot today, because I knew them. So I thought you did too.
Stony Brook Seawolves?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, and we already talked about Columbia in the game recently. So you should know that one.
I can't remember that one. What was that one? There's a lot of things that RAR.
Well, so take a shot in the dark.
Lions.
Nailed it.
There you go. It's right there. So, So Columbia is a team that they have really, really upgraded offensively this season. Now, I will say they've played a terrible strength of schedule. So there is a chance that some of this regresses to the mean here soon enough. Stony Brook is a better team than most of what they've played. But we were talking about this before we came on the segment. It's exam week at a lot of these schools, right? This week and next week. So for the Ivy League, where academics definitely takes precedent over anything else, Columbia has a big, long break after this game. So they can empty the tank. They can put everything into this game because they don't play for 11 days until exams are done and all of that. But Kevin Hovde, their first-year head coach, he was assistant under Todd Golden, was an assistant under Kyle Smith, under Chris Mooney at Richmond. This is a guy who knows how to coach offense. They got a high rim and three rate. They take a lot of smart shots. Stony Brook doesn't. Stony Brook doesn't get to the rim much. They shoot a lot of mid-range jumpers. They're not a very efficient three-point shooting team, even though they take a lot of them. So this is a line where a lot of line moves in college basketball right now have been against teams that have played weak strength of schedules. A lot of teams in the 300s and SOS are getting bet against regularly. Columbia's strength of schedule is much lower than Stony Brook's here so far, but the market bet on Columbia. When I see something like that, when I see a strength of schedule discrepancy and the market completely ignoring it, that's a really good context clue for me. So I took Columbia minus 4.5 in this game. I think they continue to play well offensively, and I trust that the market is kind of grading them a little bit higher than what the odds makers are, and I tend to agree with that stance.
That's it.
You had a lot of other stuff, so we got 60 seconds.
I was going to say we only have 50 seconds, but I can't open the can of worms that is Kentucky. And I was going to ask about Dartmouth and Colorado State, but that ship has already sailed. The Big Green.
Do you think Kentucky can get it figured out?
I mean, certainly there's enough talent there. I think that they can. I will say one game tonight that's a marquee game that I looked at. I decided not to play it.
Do it.
UConn and Florida.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this Florida team already, both on air and off air. Boogie Fland is not a great fit right now for this game.
Neither is Lee.
No, neither is Xavier and Lee. And it turns out, going from Princeton to Florida is a little bit different, in terms of the talent that you're facing. But this UConn line jumped from 1.5 to 4.5, I think. Yeah. Overnight and this morning. I very much agree with that line moving. Still thought about taking UConn at, kind of the worst of the number right now.
UConn too.
We'll preview more of the college hoops card a little bit later on in the show. Adam, appreciate you joining us as always. Make sure you follow him at Skating Tripods. We'll have that college football playoff betting guide out this week and all of the work as always up at VSiN.com. We'll be right back.